All right. So welcome to those that are new and welcome back to those that are joining us again this week. If you're here to learn about creating community-specific public programming, then you are in the right Zoom. Next slide, please. So a brief agenda for this evening. Over the past decade, many communities have faced growing challenges from physical, social, and economic conditions with less and less resources available to address those challenges. In many ways, communities are also increasingly isolated from each other. And all of these phenomena have made it more vital than ever to ensure that our public programming is well planned and well executed. So tonight, we will be discussing how to design effective public programming and events with these 5 questions you see here, providing a basic framework. So first is identifying our community. Who is our community? Second, identifying our community's challenges. Third, what is our capacity relevant for addressing those challenges? Fourth, what are our goals and what do we hope to achieve? And 5, how do we bring everything together to match our capacity and our goals to address our community's challenges? I will say tonight that we are mainly going to focus on the first 3 of these questions. Hopefully we will have a chance to expand on the last 2 in a future session. Next slide, please. So before we start with identifying our community, I want to add one more framing consideration for this evening, and that is there is no such thing as a bad neighborhood. To call back to our community agreements with some jargon, here you can see a redlining map of Lower Manhattan. So what was redlining? Redlining was a government practice for several decades where the government and financial institutions demarcated certain neighborhoods as ineligible for lending and other financial services. Areas marked as red were typically home to higher populations of people of color. And although redlining is officially outlawed today, the effects are still with us and similar practices continue to exist. So, neighborhoods may suffer socioeconomically due to societal dynamics, such as economic exploitation or underinvestment, and neighborhoods may have poorly designed or maintained built environments, but there is no neighborhood where the residents are naturally predisposed to crime or indifference to substandard living conditions and are therefore beyond hope or support. Every neighborhood and every community has the right to society's resources and the potential to improve the material conditions of its inhabitants with well-executed planning and the provision of adequate resources. So next slide, please. So let's say you are motivated to improve the material conditions of your community with some well-executed planning of some public programming. What do? You might start by recalling some fun events in other communities or your own community that you recently attended or even heard about and think, hey, I could do that here too. And in the chat, please shout out some fun recent public community-based events that you have hosted or attended or just heard about. And it would be great to hear what people are up to. This approach may work well and it may provide vital support for your community, but before you start looking for deals on bulk yoga mats, next slide, please. Let's talk some real fun here. Document shredding. So recently, NYRP hosted City Council Majority Leader Amanda Farias at the Glover Street Community Garden for a back-to-school event. And at this event, her staff distributed flyers for their upcoming paper shredding event. And her staff told us that these events are consistently the most popular public programs they run, to the point where that big truck you see behind the council member in the photo on the left is so full that they have to turn people away. And I would imagine that we've all had issues with identity theft and security, especially over the last couple of years, because this is something that public legislatures and officials haven't prioritized as a public issue, but it's something that I would imagine, are all facing and thinking about all the time. I thought this was a good example to start with tonight, because this is a program that I would have never thought to set up, but there's clearly strong community demand for it. And this demand stems from community members trusting government institutions to securely dispose of potentially sensitive documents. So to be clear, using these tools I'm sharing doesn't mean you're only going to be hosting e-waste disposal drop-offs. Cultural programming that most of us would consider more fun, maybe a little less essential, is also essential for building vibrant communities. There are also ways to make these traditionally less fun events more exciting. Next slide, please. So to start with our first question, who is your community? This is an easy question to overlook, but it might be the most important part of this process. Before you can determine what challenges your community is facing, you have to know who your community is. So Mel, do we have any good events that people have recently attended in the chat?
Oh, we've got loads. Let me just scroll up. We've got Old Timers Day because, well, as we know, especially in community gardens, we need to hold special place for our elders who are teaching us so much and laying this framework down for us to continue. So Old Timers Day from the top, back to school, and the community cooking demos that we've also been hosting here in our NYRP gardens. Thank you for that, DK. The Chicago Steppers dance events. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that that was happening. Also mentioned flower distributions in the Bronx. One of our partners, Conchetta, has also been helping out with that to make sure that the Bronx is getting their flowers. And then I kind of had a moment in the chat myself talking about how I'd really love to attend a document shredding day. Ruben brought up asthma awareness. Thank you so much, Ruben. Especially we live in the city. A lot of us are affected by this. So 100% free health clinics. Thanks, Fish. We have been also helping to have these since I've been a part of NYRP, especially I've seen a lot of free health clinics and health day events being held in gardens. Labor Day parade. Our people are attending events, that's for sure. The Rochdale Village Fall Festival. Oh yeah, fall's around the corner. We already know the equinox is going to be a very popular time to be connecting with your community. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. I am definitely going to be looking into the Chicago Line Steppers to see what that's all about. Next slide, please. So, some types of communities that you may consider supporting. To start with, we have physical communities. So these are often a geographic area based on government demarcations or labels. So that could be the county of Manhattan, New York County. It could be a smaller part of that county, such as Harlem. It could be a smaller part of that smaller part, West Harlem, or it could be as small as a single block, 149th Street, between Amsterdam and Broadway, where Maggie's Garden is located. It could also be a geographic area based on the built environment. So that might be the apartment buildings along the G subway line or the houses in the shadow of a single skyscraper. It could also be based on natural features and boundaries, such as the Bronx River watershed or Manhattan Valley. You also have social communities. So these are groups based on shared ethnic background, shared experiences, shared gender characteristics, economic characteristics, and interest-based characteristics. So you might have a group like a group of gardeners or a quilting club. You may have an age-based group such as seniors or younger people under age 10. You may have experience-based groups such as formerly incarcerated people, and you can have economic groups such as renters or Social Security recipients. And finally, you can have groups that combine both physical and social communities. For example, the Association of Italian Chefs of New York. And that is a group that is based in obviously one specific area that shares an economic profession. Next slide, please. So once you have your community, you need to determine its boundaries. And although you will necessarily exclude some people who may be interested in your organization or work, setting these boundaries will improve your overall effectiveness. And that's because you'll be able to focus your efforts rather than continuously adjusting and expanding for edge cases, which ends up taking up time and eventually spreads you too thin. You can design your next program for those who fell just outside of your community next time. So I have another question for the chat. What is the smallest community that you are a member of? No community is too small. Next slide, please. Sorry, one slide back, please. Thank you. The best tools to determine the scope of your community depend on your community's type. For physical communities, maps are typically most useful, but the types of maps you may need may vary. Where you source your maps may also vary. So why this is important is different levels of government may have different boundaries for the same neighborhood, even different agencies within the same level of government. And even the same agency may have different maps over time. For social communities, measurements tend to be more subjective and conditions tend to change more quickly over time, meaning you need to be very careful in selecting your sources of information. Again, different levels of government and different agencies, even different programs, may use different measures for the same characteristics. So here you can think of the federal government having one measure of what qualifies as low income, and New York State having a different measure of low income. It's also crucial to remember that you can and should reassess the scope of your community later in this process. Now, next slide, please. So now that you have your community, you can identify the community that your challenge face. You can identify the challenges your community faces. But first, Mel, what are some small communities that people are members of?
I got a really good one in here. Irma replied, myself, which I love because it's true.
Yes.
You
Yes,
also
Irma.
contain the expanse within you. So that makes perfect sense to me. DK replied back, me and plants. So true. What a very perfect example of this relationship that you shared. Terms may terms may also vary. The words agency and institution can be interchangeable. Quite so. Isaiah writes, my high school wrestling team. Oh my gosh, so true. No one can take away those memories that you have. And I was going to also say, my garden's co-coordinator and I, we are a mini community in which we're tending the land, but also each other.
Personally, I'm a member of the Steely Dan fans under the age of 50 community, which, if you've been to a show of theirs recently, is extremely, extremely small. So, challenges for your community may take many forms. Next slide, please. Some types of challenges your community might be facing may be natural, so arising from the landscape and the climate. So that might be related to space, specifically a lack of usable space. It may be climate conditions such as excess heat, or flooding or drought. It may also be based on natural resource availability or shortage, so depleted soil, deforestation, or lack of shoreline access. You may also have social and economic challenges arising from society's structures and systems. So these challenges might be in the forms of financial disinvestment or overinvestment in certain things. It might be a lack of employment opportunities in your community. Your community may lack certain skills that you can only acquire doing certain activities. It may be a lack of transportation or communications infrastructure. It could be environmental contamination. There could be legal restrictions that are specific to your community, and it could mean unresponsive or non-existent institutions, whether those are public or private. Third, you also have change. And change is kind of based on the first two categories, but it's based on the idea that physical and social environments are always changing. And some of these changes are natural, some are man-made, some are short-term, some are long-term, some can be controlled, and some are out of our control. These changes can create gaps in resources and services. They can create conflict. Sometimes change can alleviate or solve previously existing challenges, but simultaneously create new ones. So these are all constant dynamics that we need to watch out for over time. Next slide, please. So there are countless low or no cost tools available to determine which types of challenges are applicable to your community. Many of these tools are essentially basic observation. So first you have physical observation, and this is exactly what it sounds like. Going out and observing daily conditions such as slow traffic every day or dangerous street crossings like you see here. You may also have emergency conditions that only exist for brief moments in time, such as flooding during storms and power outages during heat waves. You may have longer term conditions such as vacant buildings, overwhelming odors, poor road upkeep, and you may have neighborhood activities, which you can see through flyers and events posted online. You can also use interactive observations, such as discussions with community members or with professionals who interact with community members, such as the community engagement staffer at a garden-based organization. You can also have discussions with other community groups, such as block associations, running groups, tenant associations, and you can also have discussions with elected officials, policymakers, and academics that have studied and worked with in specific neighborhoods. And I do want to pause here for a moment and recognize that all of this may seem a bit obvious and basic, but I promise you there are entire organizations that do not do this type of background work. And I'm speaking from experience. I've done this more times than I would like to admit. This work takes practice, and it's okay to set up a jazz performance or an e-waste disposal that 2 people attend. You know, these are skills that we are all working on always. Next slide, please. So another way to identify your community's challenges is analysis of records and data. And this is valuable on both the front end and the back end of this process. On the front end, this type of information illustrates where public policy has created gaps in resources. And it can also provide material if you are applying for grants or government funding. And then on the back end, Reporting for grants and government funding typically requires records and data. So having this material is very important. And in particular, I want to highlight one resource in particular, and that is Open Data. Open Data is New York City's free online public platform, which hosts data from New York City's local government agencies. It has data sets covering countless things, such as street tree planting, federal spending in New York City, property sales, and staff and municipal facility directories. So next slide, please. I would really recommend going on Open Data sometime and checking out everything that's available. But I want to highlight a couple of data sets that I think are especially useful for getting a sense of your community's challenges. So first is census demographics at the New York City Communities District level. And this can provide a sense of the size and demographic makeup of certain neighborhoods and how they have changed over time. Second is New York City permitted event information, which is a list of every event that people have submitted to the city government to request a permit for this year. There's no shame in seeing what events other people are running to get ideas and potentially collaborate on. If 30 back to school events are being held in your neighborhood, there's probably a good reason. And third, we have 311 service requests. And this is my personal favorite. This lists every 311 requests that the city has received since 2010. And it includes locations and descriptions, which means you can filter requests to a specific geographic area and then see what day-to-day issues in that area people are encountering most frequently and how those issues are changing over time. So as an example of how this can be useful, say you live in Mott Haven in the Bronx. Here we have the top 10 categories of 311 calls for the zip code 10454, which covers much of Mott Haven since 2017. And seventh on this list, you'll notice, is paint/plaster. And at first, I wasn't sure what that was, but if you review the additional details for those requests, you'll see that most are related to lead paint. And lead contamination is an issue that public policy has attempted to address over the past several decades with mixed success. Today, lead contamination mainly persists in low-income areas with a higher share of people of color. And knowing that this issue is especially salient in your neighborhood, you can set up an event where you canvass blocks with higher concentrations of those 311 requests to distribute information on lead removal programs and assist people with signing up. This is also a spot where you can reassess your community's boundaries if needed. Say you identify water pollution as a challenge, you may want to expand your community to include an adjacent physical neighborhood that a river runs through, or you share the shoreline of a lake with. Next slide, please. So one final vital data set on Open Data is obviously the 2018 squirrel census fur color map. The applications here are truly endless. And I mention this data set because in some cases, data may confirm your on-the-ground observations. It seems like your neighborhood has a lot of trash on the street, and you go on Open Data and turns out, yes, there are hundreds of 311 requests for more trash pickup in your zip code from the last week alone. In some cases, data may contradict your observations. It seems like too many squirrels at the park have cinnamon fur, but the science shows most of the squirrels are gray. Your experience may be limited to you rather than shared by the community, and reviewing this type of data is a good way to double check that. Finally, and maybe most importantly, data and records may reveal challenges that may not be revealed by physical observation or conversations. Consider how many issues people may not want to publicly discuss due to shame or distrust or legal ramifications. Consider how many issues people face that you may not hear about because their schedule is different than yours and they can't attend community meetings and they work at night, you work during the day. And all of these things are important to consider. So in the chat, please share a challenge that someone might not realize your community faces for one reason or another. And next slide, please. So now that you know who and where your community is and what challenges your community is facing, you should now assess your capacity. And this will allow you to maximize the usefulness of the resources you have available. Next slide, please. Some types of capacity. Your physical capacity may include spaces you have available that you can host programming at, supplies and materials that you can use. Some supplies may be only available for a one-off event. Some supplies you may have for the longer term, such as folding tables, which, as we all know, are the most important resource that anybody who does public programming seems to have, in addition to obviously folding chairs. You may also want to consider your transportation. That may be transportation that you have personally available, like vehicles, but it may also be transportation infrastructure that is built in your community. An important note here, just as important as having these physical resources is their accessibility for you and your community. Accessibility is the key ingredient that makes all of these physical resources usable. Your social capacity is also just as vital. Your social capacity may include skills that you and members of your organization or your group have, potential partner organizations and facilitators and the relationships you and your organization has with those groups, communications platforms. So this can be an account you may have on social media. It may be physical space that you can share a lot of information from very easily. This can provide a broad reach for you, or it can be a more specific reach to a more niche group. There is also memberships and certifications. That can be something like a Costco membership, so you can buy supplies in bulk for your events. It may be a food handler certification that you can use to distribute food at your programs. There may be formal or informal requirements to stage your programming that you or collaborators may have. And finally, experience, trust, and credibility. And I really want to emphasize how vital considering these resources are. When you are considering potential programming, you need to be brutally honest with yourself by asking, first, does the community trust me and or my organization to do this? Think back to Councilmember Farias. Her office's document shredding events work because community members trust her and her staff and the sanitation department to safely dispose of the material that they are given. Second, if this programming doesn't go as planned, am I risking losing my community's trust and or the ability to stage future programming or keep ongoing programming going? Trust is earned by the drop and lost by the bucket. And assessing your capacity is vital for embracing your limitations. This will help ensure you don't overreach by trying to do too much. That's an easy way to lose trust and credibility. Again, personally, I find this to be one of the toughest aspects of programming design and management. It's very easy to get excited about doing a lot of different things and thinking that certain things are very easy and quick to do. But before you know it, you have expanded past what you and or your organization can really do well. And you're in a tough spot where people are expecting too much of you. So next slide, please. Setting your goals. Here, you need to figure out what do you want to achieve. Certain challenges your community faces may be something that you can fully address. They may be challenges that will be a longer term effort. So you need to adjust your goals accordingly. Next slide, please. So a couple types of goals may be internal goals, such as building your organization's capacity or your personal capacity. It may be building your organization's membership for future programming. It may be building your organization's resources for future programming. All of these things are important to consider and may be your primary goal for a public program. External goals may include supporting partners that you have worked with or are new. They may be partners that you have worked with in the past and don't work with anymore. It may mean effecting legislative change or regulatory change by putting pressure on certain officials or institutions. It may mean providing an example for other organizations or groups to replicate. In the long term, taken together, external goals often mean building the power to address policy issue on a mass scale. And a mass scale doesn't necessarily mean across the whole country, across the whole world. It just here means across your specific community. So next slide, please. And finally, we are ready to bring it all together. So next slide. So I want to finish with an example here, returning to Mod Haven with that list of 311 requests. So just to be sure you're on firm ground, you canvass the neighborhood and you observe on your block and blocks nearby that there is in fact a lot of buildings that have paint chipping off the facade or other walls. And you find that many of these buildings look older. So you know that the paint that's coming off those buildings may have lead. You contact a professor of environmental science at your local CUNY branch who confirms that your neighborhood does have well above average levels of lead contamination, and most of that is due to old paint on buildings. The professor connects you with a nearby citizen science group, and you attend their next meeting and you describe what you've observed and what you found in the 311 requests. So you propose that the group create a public program to address the issue for your community. And everyone is super enthusiastic and on board. So you propose weekly canvassing to take samples. One of your group's members, however, shares that her apartment was recently tested for lead, and doing that kind of sampling and inspecting requires EPA certification. And several people in the group have related background in their experience. So you propose that the group instead create a pilot program to train people to take the inspector certification exam. And no, that will not necessarily mean that you are immediately able to go out to your community and start removing paint and remedying it. But this will both build awareness of the issue in the community, as well as build a volunteer base for maybe the second phase of the program, which will be that initial canvassing project you proposed. And although your group initially has little recognition or trust from the community to start, you plan to reach out to several housing assistance organizations and tenant organizations to assist with recruiting initial participants who you will work with to get certified. So all of this is to say, there is no simple universal formula for building public programming. It requires a lot of flexibility and a lot of adaptability based on what we've discussed this evening. So, who is your community? What types of challenges is your community facing? What is your capacity? What are your goals? And how can you bring it all together? So, next slide, please. To close us out, I just wanted to share some resources on public programming happening in New York City, as well as 2 institutions which provide funding and other resources for community programmers. Here you see events that NYRP has coming up, the Bronx River Alliance, the New York Botanical Garden, and the Prospect Park Alliance, and the New York Community Trust and Citizens Committee for New York City both distribute grants for public programming. And some of our gardens have received grants from the Citizens Committee, and I think also the New York Community Trust. So these are organizations that, if you are motivated, you can propose a public program for and receive support to build out. How much time have we got? We got about
We have
14
about
minutes.
14 minutes left. And if you wanted to, we have a couple of responses in the chat that I think were absolutely wonderful when folks were prompted about certain challenges that their communities face.
Yes, please go for it.
Of course. So starting off very strong, we have from Michael a mention about diabetes. Diabetes is a challenge nationwide, but in Harlem especially. And I do want to also tag along some of the other things that Michael mentioned, because this could be as educational for other folks as it was for me. Michael shares that 90% of people with prediabetes don't know that they have the disease, which is an alarming percentage. And 50% of adults 18 and up have pre-diabetes or diabetes already. So if we're able to link these numbers to communities, to whole neighborhoods, I mean, it's very clear to see that there are connections there and that there is purpose, driven purpose towards programming that will be able to help people either gain education, gain resources, gain access. Michael, I think it was very important that you mentioned the health aspect that our communities are facing. Isaiah mentions the fact that that people experience food deserts with no nearby grocery stores in their communities. How are people able to adhere to a low glycemic index diet to help their pre-diabetes if they don't have a nearby grocery store that can provide them with the food that they need? Irma mentions trash at the entrance of Thomas Jefferson Park and also follows up more mentioning that excessive trash seems to be a generalized New York City wide issue, and also mentions awesome resources, saying this is why online communities are so vital. You have Trash Nothing, NYC Free Cycle, Manhattan Free Cycle, Nextdoor, Craigslist, NYC Stooping on IG. I personally use NYC Stooping. The list goes on and on and on. Also mentioned by myself that I've seen an issue that I never got a chance to actually predict until I saw it happening in real time, when sewage grates are blocked by trash, especially when we're experiencing a lot of the flooding that we have recently with the rains that have been coming in. We experience flash floods, and then we have neighborhoods that are completely underground. Infrastructurally, we're not meant to withstand the rain levels that we're experiencing now. So we have people in our community who experience and see these big issues. And thankfully, we also have public programming as a resource to be able to kind of chip away. Maybe not, I don't think that individuals necessarily have the manpower to fix some of these challenges, but together we can.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, I've seen a number of those challenges in my community, especially in Harlem for sure. That also reminds me that often a lot of the challenges that our communities face can be compounding and interact with each other to make a bigger effect than they might be one at a time. And something important to remember is when we find a challenge that our community has, it is tough to kind of isolate it because yes, the challenge of food deserts in certain communities leads to challenges with nutrition for sure. And addressing both of those things at once might seem like a necessity, but Mel, like you just said, the scale of resources we have available to address certain challenges at times just also necessitates that we try to focus and really address one thing at a time, as hard as that can be. Yeah.
And one more submission to the chat, which I think is very important and ties into our work as well, from Nija, that neighborhoods with little to no street trees is also a very big issue.
Yes, it is. As someone who learned about open data mainly from examining the numerous data sets on street trees, that is absolutely a huge challenge. I dare anybody to go to the intersection of 125th and Lenox on the hottest day of the summer and stand outside for about 5 minutes because there are no trees there and it is a lot of concrete and it is very hot. That is something that you can see through both observation and in a spreadsheet. So there are lots of tools at our disposal.
Yes, thank you, Irma, also for saying that street tree beds help absorb some of that excess water. It's not going to be one thing. It's going to be all of these things happening together. Also, if no one is aware, NYRP has a wonderful program that Mike spearheads. It's the free tree giveaway happening April and May every year. Please let us know. Reach out now while you still can. Get those trees in. We want to help you tree out your neighborhood. Oh, and from Nija, many organizations have tree planting and street tree care events.
Look at Big Reuse. Big Reuse runs street tree care events throughout the year.
And that's all I got to say about trees right now.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I hope you all make it out to one of NYRP's gardens soon for some kind of public programming. Our gardens are hosting events almost every day somewhere. This weekend, if you go down to Green Acres Community Garden, you can catch some excellent jazz. And upcoming next month, we will have our big Fall Harvest Festival at Sherman Creek Park on October 31st.
So we'll see you there.
Yes. There will be free candy.
Oh, Fishy, I just found on Instagram, popularuniversity.nyc for free movement-based programming around the city. Thank you so much for sending that. Everyone, check in the chat right now. for some free movement-based programming around the city. Michael loves Green Acres Garden. Okay, thank you,
Who
Michael. Thanks
doesn't?
for passing by Green Acres. Yes.
They have chickens, they have peaches. What more do we really need?
That's it. That's really it. Thank you so much, Mike. So much for this educational experience. Thank you everyone for sounding off in the chat. If there's any other questions you have, please let us know now. After our series is over next Tuesday, when we wrap up with my virtual series, we will be making information available to you for those who would like to go over what we've talked about, or for folks who might have missed out on it and would like to know what we talked about. So more information coming soon in the near future as a wrap up for our
Mel,
virtual series. Yes.
Mel,
Yes.
what will your session next week cover?
Oh, yes. We are closing out our wonderful virtual series. Next Tuesday, I will be covering methods of the traditional farmer, harvesting practices of the autumn time. So if you're interested, maybe if you are a traditional farmer, maybe if you're more of an urban farmer, if you just want to know what happens around this time of the year, please, I'd love to see you in 1 week's time. Join on and we will learn together. Thank you.
May I make one more plug?
Nija, please plug away.
If you have been enjoying this series so far, NYRP engagement and programming team is not done with you at all. We are partnering with Green Thumb on a new virtual series that's going to focus on different climate topics. So our first one, I believe, is September 24th, if I'm not mistaken, but more information will be released to you all about that as well. So keep an eye out. It's going to be maybe a 4 or 5-part series that happens once a month. So yeah, that's going to be in partnership with Green Thumb. So more to come on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalia, for your kind words. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Taylor.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening, taking time from your evening to be with us and learning with us. Hope to see you in 1 week. Thank you so much.